little bit, but his game is heavily founded in scoring.
This brings us to the next guy, who is another player who fits a similar, I guess, I don't know if it's mold necessarily, but he's a two guard and someone that we have even less information on, and that is Shaedon Sharpe, the 19-year-old 6'5" guard allegedly from Kentucky. Obviously, we never saw him play at Kentucky, so we don't really know what to think of him. We've got some EYBL numbers, we've got some FIBA under 19 numbers or under 16 numbers. I don't even know which one it is. Or obviously the mess of stuff happening at Kentucky. He's projected really high in the draft. Is that just the mystery box portion of that? Like, oh, well, when we saw him at this level 2 years ago, he was putting up these sort of numbers, and we think it can get there. Like, where are we with him? Like, how do we make heads or tails of what happened this season?
It's all going to come out through intel. Intel is going to be key with a guy like Shaedon Sharpe. Will he work out beyond 1-on-0? I've heard he will, which is interesting. So, and that stuff's coming like next week. So we'll know pretty quick, I think, of if there's some stuff about his stock changing next week. I would put real stock in that amount about it being real. But you look at a guy who, I mean, in theory, he's a guy who has a near 7-foot wingspan, 3-level scoring, can pass out of drives, thrives in quick offense. I mean, that's tailor-made for the NBA as a two guard, and I think he's got the mold to be that.
So he's 6'5", 6'11" wingspan, so we're talking about +6 there again. Is he a pure 2, or is he a guy that's got some ball handling upside? Can he play up and play at the 3 in smaller sort of lineups, do you think, or is he just going to be really pigeonholed into that position?
Yeah, I think especially early he's going to be pigeonholed into being a 2. But I think he has a create enough handle to set up some jump shots where you can maybe have him as a 1. The hard thing about the EYBL and high school tape is just, what do you make of it, right? Because he was clearly the best player on the court every single time he stepped on the court. Is he a willing passer? What's his defense like? Things like that. That's going to be what really dictates. Does he play just the 2? Does he move down, or does he scale up as a 3 or a 1?
Where do you have him? Like, he's widely being mocked in that 4 to 7 range, I guess, most commonly seemingly at either 5 or 6 to the Pistons or the Pacers. Is that the range that you have him, and is there a team that you think he would be better suited to go to, or one that would be like a horrible mistake for him to go to?
Yeah, I have him 8th on my board, and that's actually the spot I think would be best for him is New Orleans. I think his range really starts at 6. I'd be pretty shocked if he goes to Detroit, but I wouldn't rule it out. I'd just be pretty stunned. But I also said the same thing about Giddey going very high last year. Could be wrong. I think his range extends into double digits, though. Like, there's a chance he extends all the way down to Washington, maybe even further, depending on how much teams are scared to take him, just based on, potentially who he's around, things like that. The whole antics that have gone through this draft cycle are crazy. So it's hard to say, but I would take him in New Orleans. I think it's a great fit for him to develop. I think it complements, if he hits, of course, you complement Ingram, you complement Zion, and that's 3 stars right there if he's a success.
In general, Richard, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but this draft class is considered weaker than last year, and some of the other years are probably less top-end talent. There's obviously a lot of rotation-ish sort of guys, but once you head probably out of that top 3, maybe top 4, you include Ivy in that mix. Is Sharpe the guy with that multi-all-star level upside over any of these other guys in a class that maybe is a little bit bereft of that caliber of upside player?
In theory, yes. In actuality, I have my number 1 player outside of the top 4 guys in Ivy, Paolo, Chet, and Jabari. I have Benedict Mathurin. I think he's the real chance to – you look at a wing that has the size, length, athleticism, defense, and shooting. Even if he's like a decent passer, that's all he needs. I think you're looking at a star mold. This draft is unfortunately sandwiched next to 2 of the greatest drafts of the last of this century, honestly. I mean, last year was a generational one. Next year is not going to be any worse with Victor Wembanyama. It's a tough picture to paint, but so maybe our expectations are a little bit too high. I think there's still some gems that can be had.
It's going to be really intriguing. Like, he's one of those guys you talk about, like mystery players, and people often mislabel that because he played in Australia or he played in Europe or he played for the G League. Nobody knows about him, which is garbage. But we just haven't seen this guy play. Like, no one has seen Shaedon Sharpe really play in a competitive environment. really ever. Like EYBL sort of counts, but it doesn't really. So we just don't know what we're going to get out of this guy. So that's going to be a really, we talk boom or bust all the time. Literally who knows? We just talked about Jaden Hardy being the number 2 recruit, and maybe sliding out of the first round now. Whereas maybe that you're taking Sharpe at pick 5 or 6. And he ends up the same as Jaden Hardy, as a guy that you wouldn't want to take or waste a first round pick on, which might be, it could be disastrous for teams that are picking in that zone. So it is fraught with a lot of danger to have a look at a player who just haven't seen play in that level of environment for a year or so, and even then never really at that level. So a lot of question marks there with him. We'll get to